modern states successfully centralize. They centralize power, they centralize law, they create a uniform standard of laws, a uniform standard for weights and measures in commerce. Successful modern states overcome local resistance. Much of that success in centralization then rests on firearm technology, and in particular, a monopoly of advanced firearm technology that the state is well ahead of any of its internal or external competitors in firearm technology. This was the lesson from the Ottoman Empire, right? The Ottoman Empire jumps ahead. It successfully centralizes economic, political, and military power. But then because of internal corruption, no outside threat came at the Ottoman Empire until it was weakened from the inside. When it was weakened from the inside, it had lost its central authority. It had lost its monopoly on firearms. It lost its monopoly on political power. And when it did so, that produced both internal resistance as well as then predators coming from the outside trying to take it over. Ottoman survival, though, benefited from the concert of Europe. The Ottomans happened to be living at a time in which European governments feared war. Infantry technology had changed the nature of war. Wars got bigger and more deadly. The imbalance of power let people like Napoleon cross Europe, wage deadly campaigns, and overturn governments. War itself was a revolutionary act. It created an attitude then about limited war in the early 19th century. Early 19th century leaders like Metternich or Castlereagh wanted to limit the impact of war because war could topple governments. Toppled governments led to popular uprisings. Popular uprisings chop people's heads off. The Turks benefited from that attitude because the great powers then intervened to try to stabilize the Ottoman Empire. They tried to prevent the cannibalization, either from internal threats or external threats of the Ottoman Empire. So that great power intervention, ironically, then added to the survival of the Turks. If the Turks had just been left to go on their own, they probably would have fell both either to an internal threat, like someone like Muhammad Ali, or to an external threat, either to the Russians or the Habsburgs. So that great power intervention kept the Turks in power through the 19th century. One of the bigger questions events in early 19th century Turkish history raise is the question of national uprisings or elite resistance. These stories are often told as the Greeks rebelled against the Turks, or the Egyptians rebelled against the Turks, the Serbs rebelled against the Turks. But in reality, if you dig a little bit deeper, than just looking at the surface, there's really not a lot of popular uprising or nationalist motivation. There is some type of local grievance that triggers local elites to go against the Turks. The local elites feel mistreated. These local elites don't want to create a nation state, a state based on popular sovereignty, where these local elites would then answer to a local population through suffrage of any way. What these local elites want is another dynastic system, right? They want a dynastic state. Nothing illustrates this more than what happened in Greece. You had local Greek leaders who felt frustrated and saw vulnerability in the Turkish Empire, rose up to try to seize political power for themselves. The great powers intervened and they said, okay, you're going to have this Bavarian as your king. If this had been a Greek uprising, why would the Greeks accept a German prince as their ruler? And particularly a German prince who established a divine right, absolute monarch of the state. It just doesn't make any sense. This was not a Greek uprising. This was a group of local elites that resisted centralized authority, and they were successful because that centralized authority could not put them down. But the only reason the Sultan was not successful was that Egyptian armies, or Muhammad Ali's armies, ran into the other great powers who said, stop right there. You're not going any farther. Modernization leads to state survival. Modernization means centralization and a monopoly on firearms. States that could not modernize, could not establish a centralized authority with a common set of laws, a common set of economic policies, a common taxation system. States that could not do that lost to states that could. The Ottoman Empire would have been a loser if not for the context of the concert of Europe. Great powers intervened to prevent the cannibalization of Turkish wealth, power, land.